Imagine the most powerful figure in Europe wasn't royalty or nobility, but a banker worth $400 billion in modern currency. Meet Jacob Fugger, a man so influential he kept kings nervous and essentially controlled Europe through financial dominance alone. This peasant's grandson didn't merely accumulate riches, he constructed empires, bankrolled wars, swayed popes, and his choices literally redrew continental borders. But his actions would also fracture Europe and ignite one of history's most catastrophic conflicts. The Fugger family started from absolute poverty. Jacob's grandfather, Hans Fugger, was a simple peasant weaver in rural Germany, working-class farmers with zero wealth. But Hans possessed something money couldn't purchase: pure ambition. He abandoned his village to escape oppressive nobles and began working as a tradesman in the city. Through relentless effort and strategic marriages to guildmasters' daughters, Hans gradually acquired civic rights and commercial freedom. His textile business flourished, and he eventually joined the city's council. Hans established the foundation for what would become Europe's most dominant dynasty. His son, Jacob I, inherited both business acumen and a cautious approach. Unlike relatives who squandered fortunes through reckless choices, Jacob I calculated every risk and diversified into textiles, spices, jewels, and religious relics. By 1463, he'd become a full guild member, cementing elite status. Jacob I had 11 children who continued expanding the family enterprise. Among them, youngest son Jacob II would transform the Fugger name into legend. Ironically, young Jacob initially wanted nothing to do with business. He aspired to priesthood. But his brothers recognized his natural talent with numbers and convinced him to join the family operation. In 1478, Jacob was dispatched to Venice to learn modern bookkeeping and Italian banking practices. This education would prove absolutely crucial for the empire he was about to construct. When Jacob returned in his 20s, he received control of the family's Austrian operations. Unlike his cautious relatives, Jacob embraced risk. His first major gamble targeted Sigmund, a Habsburg noble notorious for his extravagant lifestyle and terrible financial management. Sigmund threw parties where dwarfs jumped from pies to wrestle giants. He financed this lavish lifestyle through countless loans, often defaulting. While other bankers saw only foolishness, Fugger saw opportunity. Jacob made a small but strategic loan to Sigmund. This wasn't about money, it was about building Habsburg relationships and gaining access to the lucrative mining industry, typically controlled by nobility. During military conflict with Venice, Sigmund found himself financially desperate. Major bankers refused him due to poor credit history. That's when Jacob made his boldest move. He gambled his family's entire fortune and loaned Sigmund 100,000 florins, equivalent to tens of millions today. Other bankers laughed at Jacob's apparent recklessness. They were convinced he'd never see repayment. But Jacob was thinking strategically. He placed strict conditions, including gaining control of Sigmund's state treasury, rather than accepting silver repayment. Imagine the shock when wagons loaded with the Archduke's silver arrived at Fugger's warehouses. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Jacob was now wealthy beyond measure and had cemented his position as trusted financier to European nobility. From this venture, Jacob gained not just wealth but political connections. He used these to participate in mining operations, eventually opening the greatest mining center of his time. The Archduke even granted access to massive silver mines as repayment for funding his lifestyle. Because of Fugger's activities, entire cities transformed into mining metropolises. Importantly, copper was essential for making cannons and weapons, deciding warfare outcomes. The Fuggers now had near monopolistic control over this critical resource, allowing them to set prices and dramatically boost influence. In 1494, the Fuggers established what many consider the first public company, starting with 54,000 guilders. Jacob doubled this within 2 years by convincing the Prince Bishop of Brixen to join as a silent partner. His vision was clear: create a copper monopoly and become Europe's most powerful man. Jacob expanded aggressively, opening foundries across Central Europe and focusing heavily on Antwerp, which was becoming a major trade hub between Europe, Asia, and the New World. The Fuggers became unofficial rulers of this commercial empire. But then crisis struck. The Prince Bishop died, and the Pope claimed the inheritance. This taught Jacob a crucial lesson about the relationship between power and wealth. He negotiated skillfully with the Vatican to protect interests, and learned that seizing power was essential for protecting wealth. This realization transformed Jacob's entire approach. He began seeing people as pieces in a strategic game, to be used or discarded as needed. He even abandoned his old patron, Sigmund, for his cousin, the future Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. When Maximilian threatened to seize power if Sigmund couldn't repay debts, Jacob chose to finance Maximilian's efforts rather than help Sigmund. This proved brilliant, as Maximilian was far more capable and opened new opportunities in Hungarian copper mining. In 1507, Maximilian granted Jacob the countships of Kirchberg and Weissenhorn, effectively elevating the Fuggers to high nobility status. When other bankers pressured Maximilian to cut Jacob out, he used influence with dukes and bishops to force the emperor to relent. In 1514, Maximilian officially recognized Jacob's power by making him a count. When the emperor's health declined, he needed Jacob's support to secure the throne for his successor, Charles V. Jacob delivered, financing 64% of Charles's election expenses, around 544,000 guilders. This massive financial support secured Charles V's position and further solidified Fugger's influence over European politics. But Jacob was too smart to support only one side. He also secured alliances with King Henry VIII of England, ensuring Fugger influence extended beyond the Holy Roman Empire. Next, Jacob targeted Rome itself. He took over transferring donations from Germany to Rome, earning the title God's Banker. He became the Vatican's top financier, even paying Swiss mercenaries to protect the Pope, establishing the tradition of Swiss papal guards. The Fuggers managed funds from indulgence sales, secured church benefits, and from 1508 to 1515, leased the Roman mint. Jacob served 7 popes and minted coins for 4. His financial support helped fund major projects like the Sistine Chapel. When his brother died in 1510, Jacob became the sole master of European finance. His influence was so vast that historic events were driven by his business interests. He dictated to Emperor Maximilian to pursue a marriage alliance with Hungary, literally redrawing Europe's map and creating the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In Rome, Jacob was pivotal in ending the Church's ban on charging interest. This breakthrough for capitalism accelerated debt financing and set the stage for the modern economy. At his peak, he could threaten the most powerful nobles if they fell behind on payments. In 1523, he wrote a stern letter to Charles V demanding payment. It is worth noting that His Majesty would not have the imperial crown without me. You must calculate the money you owe me and pay me without further delay. This was real power, addressing the most powerful man in Europe as an equal. Ironically, Jacob's greatest historical impact was unintended. The Fugger family's involvement in selling indulgences drew massive criticism. People saw the Vatican as having sold itself to a greedy merchant. This contributed directly to Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation. The sale of indulgences certificates, absolving sin or reducing purgatory time, was seen as exploiting people's fear of damnation for profit. Luther's 95 Theses in 1517 challenged these practices, sparking religious upheaval across Europe. Many also resented the Fuggers and the Pope for legalizing usury. While this facilitated business for the wealthy, it enabled predatory lending that trapped the poor in debt cycles, worsening social inequalities and creating widespread resentment. The far-reaching effects of Fugger's financial strategies ultimately sowed seeds for the 30 Years' War. This devastating conflict led to immense suffering, with estimates suggesting 20% of Europe's population perished, with some areas experiencing a 60% population decline. Despite being one of history's wealthiest men, Jacob himself lived simply. He focused solely on expanding business and bringing financial reforms. In his own words, "I want to gain while I can." His biggest asset was immense willpower that overcame countless challenges, including legal actions, social unrest, and attempts to nationalize his mines. However, the Reformation deeply troubled Jacob by undermining the Catholic Church's power, which had been crucial to his empire. As the movement challenged church authority, it led to widespread criticism of figures like Fugger, destabilizing his financial interests. Despite rising opposition, he fought against the new movement and strove to protect his legacy. But his aging body couldn't keep up with the strain, and he died in winter 1525 at age 66. His empire was inherited by his nephew Anton, since Jacob never had children. Jacob Fugger's influence permanently shifted European history. If the Medicis birthed modern capitalism, Jacob perfected it. He transformed economic, political, and social landscapes through control over vital resources, and his role financing emperors and popes. His innovations in banking and finance created systems we still use today. The concept of public companies, international banking networks, and debt financing all trace back to methods Jacob pioneered. He understood that information was power, maintaining extensive correspondence networks across Europe. Jacob's approach to business was revolutionary. He didn't just lend money, he created ecosystems of dependence. Rulers relied on his capital, miners depended on his infrastructure, and merchants needed his trade networks. This web of interdependence gave him unprecedented leverage over European affairs. The sophistication of Fugger's financial instruments was centuries ahead of its time. He created complex derivatives, currency hedging mechanisms, and international letters of credit that facilitated global trade. These innovations laid the groundwork for modern international finance. The scale of operations was truly mind-boggling. At its peak, the Fugger Empire employed thousands of workers, operated mines across multiple countries, maintained trading posts throughout Europe, and had representatives in every major court. His annual revenues exceeded those of many kingdoms, yet his legacy remains deeply complicated. While Jacob's methods advanced economic progress and facilitated European expansion into global markets, they also exacerbated social inequalities and contributed to religious conflicts that devastated the continent. The irony of Jacob Fugger's life is profound. A man who started with nothing and achieved everything ultimately contributed to forces that would reshape Europe in ways he never intended. His pursuit of wealth and power helped trigger the very conflicts that would diminish his family's influence. From peasant origins to controlling European empires, Jacob Fugger proved that strategic thinking and calculated risk-taking can reshape entire civilizations. His extraordinary journey remains one of history's most compelling examples of how ambition, intelligence, and opportunity combine to create world-changing influence.